Good morning, class. Today we are going to discuss about the concept of communication, different types of communication, that is formal and informal, and also come to know the importance of communication in business. Now we come to understand the concept of communication. So according to Louis Allen, communication is the sum of all the things one person does when he wants to create understanding in the mind of other. Simply we can say communication is between the two people where someone is saying something and someone is listening something. Here encoding is also important, that is the process by which an idea is transformed so that it can be transmitted to and recognized by a receiver. As for example, it may be a written or a spoken message. Features of communication. So here are the important features of communication, that is two-way process. Tell me what is two-way process? A communication in a two-way process because through this process message flow from sender to receiver in one hand and other hand feedback flows from the receiver to sender. Okay. Next one is information sharing and understanding. Afterwards, verbal and non-verbal. So, verbal, what is verbal communication and non-verbal communication? We will discuss later. Afterwards, circular flow. That is, a communication process started when a sender sends a message to a receiver and it gets complicated when the sender gets feedback from the receiver to the message. So, it is a circular process. Now goal oriented, so it is important for the anyone because if someone saying something to the others, it may be have some goals or some important topic. Afterwards, continuous process. So in order to achieve result, a manager has to continuously tell his subordinates, means a manager has to tell to its employees about what to do, how to do, and when to do various things. Means they have to set the deadlines also. Again, the manager also has to know continuously reaction of the subordinates, means they are doing or not, or they have facing the difficulties. Afterwards, lastly, pervasive activity. In order to fulfill the organizational objectives, managers have to send their ideas, view, decisions, suggestions, and feelings regularly to the employees. And they have to know the feeling, reaction, and difficulties of the employees. An effective communication system convey the ideas, view, decisions, suggestions, and feelings of the management of the employee and help the management to know the feelings. So these are the features of communication. Now we are going to discuss the importance of business communication. Importance of communication in corporate world. First of all, communication helps to increase the sale. With a proper communication, it is always increase the sale of the company. Now next, help in retaining the client. If we have better communication between the client retain always. Afterwards, help to implement strategies. Afterwards, helps in cooperating corporate branding. Second last, helps to develop global competence. Help in crisis management. Elements of communication. So there are different elements of communication we are going to discuss. So here is the list for the elements of communication. First one is sender, means person who conveys his message or idea. Afterwards, encoding. Encoding means the process of converting the message into symbols, word, diagram, gesture. Afterwards, message. Message is the subject matter of communication which sender wants to convey to the receiver. Afterwards, channel is the path or way through which encoded message is transmitted to the receiver. Then receivers, that is the person who receives the message from the sender. And lastly, decoding. Decoding means translating the encoded message into language understandable by the receivers. And after all this, the one more important point, that is noise. Noise is an obstruction or hindrance which hampers the communication process. Disturbance in the telephone line, faculty decoding, poor internet connection, improper gestures and posture, etc. are the examples of noise. It is not a particular step of communication process. It may take place at any. So as I told you earlier, we will discuss the formal and informal communications later. So now we are going to discuss about the formal and informal communication. Formal communication refers to that type of communication which is concerned with the official matter. As for example, when there is exchange of information related to official matter, such as assignment of job, fixation of responsibility, granting authority, setting up of targets, etc., is known as formal communication. Look at this diagram given below, the downward, upward, horizontal and diagonal. So these are the four categories of formal communication. So now we have to understand what is downward communication. That flows of information from the superior to the subordinate. Means the higher level to the lower level is called the downward communication. Afterwards, upward communication. So this is the flow of information from the subordinate to the superior. This is the vice versa from the downwards. Afterwards, horizontal communication. The communication which takes place between two or more persons working at the same level of authority is called a horizontal communication. For example, exchange of information between two department head is an example of horizontal communication. And lastly, diagonal. When a communication takes place between two persons of two departments, means the communication takes place between two persons at a two different departments, then it is called a diagonal communication. As for example, flow of information between salesman and a production manager is an example of diagonal communication, because the salesman and the production manager both are from the different departments. Afterwards, we are moving towards the informal communication. So the communication which takes place on the basis of personal or social relation among the employees in an organization is called informal communication. It is an exchange of information unofficially. So simply we can say any unofficial conversation is called an informal communication.